It is my honor to introduce to you the graduation ceremony speaker of the day and the chief guest, Mr. M.S. Unnikrishnan, who is the Managing Director and CEO of Thermax Limited, the Energy and Environment Solutions major. Thermax, as we know, as a company, has a global presence, operates in areas of heating, cooling, power, water and waste management, air pollution control and chemicals. Mr. Unnikrishnan, an engineer himself, he graduated in mechanical engineering from VNIT from Nagpur in 1982 and completed his advanced management program from Harvard Business School, US. He is a passionate advocate of a sustainable ecosystem of innovation and technology for national resurgence. He chairs the CII National Committee of Industrial Relations and is a member of the Development Council constituted by the Ministry of Heavy Industries, Government of India. He chairs the CII Industrial Relations Committee. He has chaired the Capital Goods Skill Council Committee under the National Skills Development Corporation. He also chaired the Skills Working Group of the BRICS Business Council in 2016. Mr. Unnikrishnan is a member of the AICTE Jury Committee for Annual Ranking of Technical and Management Institutes of the country and is also the co-chair of Apex Council to implement the Prime Minister's Fellowship Scheme for Doctoral Research. He has been honored with the Asia Innovator Award at the CNBC Asia Business Leaders Awards 2012. Recognizing his contribution to the field of mechanical engineering, the Institution of Engineers has felicitated him as an eminent engineering personality in 2016. He has also been conferred with the Fellowship of the Indian National Academy of Engineering for his distinguished contribution to engineering. Mr. Unnikrishnan is known for his strategic and human relations skill and is a champion of green technologies. Please put your hands together for Mr. Unnikrishnan.
Chairperson of the Institute, Madam Aruna Khatara, Principal Dr. Patil, my dear friend Professor Madhuri Reddy, and students representative Mamshi, the proud parents, the professors and staff of this prestigious institute, my dear young friends who have passed out with flying colors and are sitting in colorful dresses today and have already started your career. It's a proud privilege for somebody like me. I gain a lot more than you gaining in the talk because seeing the raw energy of all of you, batteries of people like us get charged. And we go back with that kind of feeling in the mind that look, there is a future for this country. Because it's in your hands, like Madam mentioned about this future of our poor country remains and to advance it further. But if I go to compare you guys and take me back to 38 years, that's the time when I graduated in 1982, it's 38 years long journey that I had in life related to career. I would say that you're lucky ones. I'm jealous of you. Because when we passed out in 1980s, we were a protected economy and there were very limited options available. So all of us ran around for security of life and securitizing our life itself. Whereas you're born into a situation where you're one of the finest of the countries to be born in at this point of time. And I don't need to be explaining each of the aspects of it, but to remember that we're a developing country, not a developed country. Where developed countries go for maintenance, so you need maintenance engineers. Creativity is needed when you're going to be building an economy, and that's what's happening in the country. And like Madam Katra mentioned about, you have the opportunity to be partaking in building of a nation, the largest democracy of the world, and possibly the largest economy one day. Will it become largest economy of the world, the largest population will depend a lot on you, and the way you guys are going to be conducting the life, not the way we've done it. If I were to look at it, it's a great opportunity. But it is not as easy as it is for all of us, because during our time, life went at a very slow pace. And today, the life is going to be absolutely different for you. It's a VUCA world. I don't have to be explaining that. It's a volatile world. It's an uncertain world. And there will be complexities of the type that we have not encountered. So the software that all of us had put into our brains in the medulla oblongata of ours when we started the career is not going to be sufficient for you. You're going to be on the learning curve every day, every minute, because the world is changing. Apart from that, stability of the world is also getting challenged at this point of time. So you're born into or getting into a world, economic and political instability is going to be prevailing, and the predictabilities are going to be different. When people like us became managers, we had almost 80 to 90% of the data available black and white, and only 10% was uncertain data. So decision making as a process is much easier. But you guys are going to get into a world, the millennials are going to get into a world where, in my understanding, the clear-cut, trustworthy data is going to be maybe 20-30%, and maybe a 60-70% of the data is going to be a gray in color, and another 10% like we had black. So taking decisions in your life, in your career, and in your companies and the jobs that you're going to be conducting can't be done with any of the earlier principles. So I would tend to believe that youngsters of today should not listen to the elders of yesterday. The moment you learn from us and start to replicate it, you're going to be a failure in life. You got to be learning on the move, and because the world is moving at such a pace. And I'll give you examples of that. In year 2011, the number of connected machines and equipments in the world has exceeded the global population. Global population was equal to 7.4 billion in 2011. So I don't think any of you are aware of the fact that in the past 6 years, what has happened to that is it's become 4 times more. Today, there are 4 times more than the human population which are connected equipments, including your mobile phones. And by 2026, it is expected to be 40 times. And the ability of them to be controlling you and your life is going to be far superior. So human beings are going to be only having something in their pocket is smarter than them, and they are not going to be as smart as what they thought and what they will be in the future. So what is the change which is going to happen with that? See, there is sensors. I still remember when I started as an engineer way back in 1980s, when somebody asked that for automating a boiler, they wanted a sensor to be put to measure the carbon dioxide that's coming from the chimney of the boiler. And those days, a boiler of that kind would be costing maybe 30-35 lakh rupees, and the cost of a sensor was approximately 15 lakhs. The same sensor today, which is almost 1/100th of the size, and has got 1,000 times more capability to be sensing multiple signals, and also ability to store it locally and give maybe in nanoseconds the signal back to a controller, is only $1, and not made in China, it's made in Germany. Okay. So that's a change that's going to be happening. So the world is going to be changing at such a fast pace. So there will be data available. All the panchendriyas, the senses that human being possess, is going to be available mechanically. So you have data coming in such kind of levels. Again, the numbers to give you. When mobile phones started sending data, I think 2099-2000 in the developed world, 100 GB data got transmitted in one day. Okay? You get the number? You guys youngsters are 100 GB data got transmitted in one day. Today, in 1 second, 63 million GB is getting transmitted. Okay? So it's unimaginable for a human brain to be thinking about the changes which is happening to the world. And that entire data comes together, and you have big data analysis. And once the data is analyzed, there is an artificial intelligence, which is an earthy intelligence all of us possess, because of which we took decisions and felt that we are great leaders. Today you can replicate a human brain in smaller size than the human brain. At maybe today it must be costing a couple of $1 million. But by the time you guys utilize your knowledge and capability, it is going to be microchips. So world is changing. And to work along with them is a challenge that you'll be facing. But be assured of the fact that in our generation, the percentage of the brain that we utilize was maybe 10-11%. You guys can utilize maybe another 20-30 of yours and conquer those machines of tomorrow. That's a challenge for you. So you got to be agile, and you can't be affording to be intellectually inferior to the machines. So you're going to be intellectually superior to the machine. How will it happen? A constant learning. In the companies that you're working currently, there's an annual report and a balance sheet that we prepare every year. Everything as a machinery that we purchase, the capital assets, are depreciated every year. All mechanical equipments, machines that you deal with, are depreciated by 10%. Something is worth 100 rupees yesterday, after 1 year is only 90. So 10 years down the line, the value of that is this. And electronic items that you put in your pocket, or maybe the laptops that you carry, is normally depreciated by 33% every year, which means the value of a computer after 3 years is this. Now, organizations have 2 types of assets. Number 1 is intellectual assets possessed by you, and the physical assets possessed by the companies. So physical assets, there are always a mechanism by accounting. The chartered accountants have found a good mechanism to depreciate it. But intellectual assets are not depreciated by anybody, but it's getting depreciated by the day. Not that you are coming down. It's only the world going ahead of you. Unless otherwise you put in your own efforts to be acquiring knowledge and be at the cutting level on everyday basis, there is nobody going to be helping you in the future. And there won't be any professors to teach you. And I do know the nightmare this professors of yours would have undergone to teach you and ingress that knowledge into your brain. Now without the ingression going to happen with the pressure from outside, you got to be acquiring the knowledge to be remaining relevant. For those who have joined the IT industry must be aware of the fact that in the past 7 or 8 years, the people who are at the middle level of the larger IT companies of India or anywhere in the world were finding it very difficult to be continuing. Most of them are getting benched or some of them have to go out also. Why? Because they have become a past. The younger lot of people have much better knowledge and ability to process. Elder people already are managing the balance sheets. They already become that particular level of maybe becoming a business unit head or an SB head. So it is a pressure that we'll be facing also in the future. So be clear in your mind that at certain level, if you think you're going to be irrelevant, it is nothing wrong for you to be quitting your job like the way people do abroad and come back to universities and colleges to refresh your knowledge and start picking up. There's something which you've got to think. Don't copy people like us who continue to be working. So this is the second thing which I would like to tell you. Next thing is for those who opted to be living in this country, yes, a great opportunity. It is currently approximately a 3 trillion economy. Has got a potential to be, in any case, becoming the third largest economy during your lifetime, maybe 20 years down the line, provided all what we do is right. Possibly in Davos in 2002, Jeffrey Sachs, who's rated as one of the best ever economists born, he was, I think, recommended for Nobel Prize for Economics at the age of 31. 7 times the name got recommended but not given because he has not lost his hair or grayed his hair. Normally they give Nobel Prize only if you lose hair. I would have got one. But this is the way it is going to be happening. His mathematical modeling has shown that China economy will overtake America by 2036 and India has got a go at it to overtake America. Provided there is a political sagacity going to be shown by both these countries, political leadership, and America willing to coexist with two larger powers than them. These are the two conditions. So that invitation is available for all of you to make it great and become that particular size. But there is a doubt related to that. I'll take a little minutes to explain that for the younger friends of mine. There is something lacking in our country. That is science. You may not believe it. Truthfully, your country contributed to the largest share of the global GDP for a continued period of 1,600 years. You may not be knowing about that. For a very long period, virtually 30 to 35% of the global GDP was contributed by your poor country. Continue to be doing that way. But unfortunately, one scientific invention has put your country down. That is gunpowder. The first scientific invention where people started coming to your country, plundering the wealth of your country, taking it away from here. And some of them stayed back over here. And they created another dynasty over here. And I would respect them on account of the fact that unless there is a diversity in the society, it won't be innovative in nature. So the diversity created by those who created different dynasties over here has also created the fundamentals of an innovative society for us. But beyond them, we became a colony of multiple people. I don't know how many of the youngsters are aware of the fact that we had a French colony in India, Portuguese colony in India, and ultimately your country became a part of the colony of British Empire. And for 200 years, long years, your forefathers were fighting for independence, and which we got in 1947. But something happened during this 200 years when we were struggling for our independence. In 1783, a stupid engineer by the name of James Watt invented a stupid machine. Yeah, you know about that? Steam engine. It mechanized the entire world. Another 7 to 8 years, Dr. Otto created IC engines. So with the mechanization of the world happening, for thousands of years when the world was growing at a very slow pace, it started having a vertical jump taken up. And during the time when the world was getting mechanized and the pace of industrialization was really catching up, your poor country was bereft of it and we were fighting for our independence. And that lost 200 years is what we will be regaining. I've done schooling in the later engineering and a lot more of 38 years of life in this field. I am yet to come across barring a C.V. Raman's equation, anything which is called maybe Reddy equation or Kathara equation or Unnikrishnan equation. Have you learned anything like that? It's not done. Because we have not done any scientific invention as a country. That's what we lack. And what is the relevance of science we're going to be understanding? Science creates technology. Every technology in the world has come from science only. From technology you create commerce. Commerce creates economy. economy creates politics. You never understood there is a connectivity between science and computing. On the beginning of the path is creation of wealth, and the second path is distribution of wealth. Now you guys have opted for engineering. That means you are on the path of creating wealth. Do a good job of wealth. And for a poor country like India, what we need is people who can create wealth. I still remember in 2004 or 5, when Asim Premji was rated the third richest Indian, a TV interview was being conducted by a young girl, and asking this question, doesn't it sound to be obscene to have so much of wealth? And the answer given by Asim Premji to that journalist was that, sorry, in this country if I don't create wealth, what will I distribute? Poverty? So, you have a fundamental duty to ensure that you create wealth. And in any case, consumption of wealth is limited. Though we may believe that we own a lot of properties, a lot of wealth, a male will normally consume 2,200 calories per day, and women normally prefer to take little less. You want to be very determined women. So 1,800 is what you will normally be consuming. So wealth can't be consumed by yourself. But for building a country which is poor in nature, you need to be creating wealth. That's a path you've chosen already. And my request to each one of you is do a good job of that. And there you're going to be finding a lot of challenges. Normal way to create a society going up is to have energy being converted or created. You need energy for it. In fact, the sensitivity of energy for a country of our size at this level that we are in current level, for every percentage growth of GDP, you need to be having 1% of energy growth also happening in the country. So if you have to say that I'm a planning commission member, or maybe if you are the Niti Aayog chairperson today, and if you're going to be having a plan made for growing your economy by 8% every year, your energy resources and conversion should be growing by 8%. And now comes to energy. Anybody in India who's on the road will want to buy a bicycle. The chap who's on a bicycle will want to buy a motorcycle. You guys had motorcycles, so most of you are now aspiring to buy a hatchback car. Hatchback will want to move into a sedan. Sedan guy will want to have a Merc. The Merc owners are aspiring to buy what? Aircrafts. Personal jet. I mean, how can you deny an aspiring society the best thing in life? And I'll support it also. For example, America with a population of 33 crore, 330 million, has got more than 10,000 airstrips. Your poor country has not even touched 200. It's got a population 4 times more than that of America. So you know what is the development needed for your country. But for all this what I mentioned about motorcycle onwards to aircraft, it needs energy. Currently it is coming from petroleum products. And for 17.5% of the global population, that's for all of you, the largest population in the world, one where I can be guaranteeing to all of you that we will overtake China, is in population. So yeah, again to give you numbers, 130 crore, 1.55% growth means we produce almost equivalent to 20 million Indians a year. We are gifting an Australia to the world every year. So this kind of a population has got less than 1% of the global known reserves of oil and gas. So there are no oil and gas available for you. Coal is also not available sufficiently. So energy will be the biggest challenge for those youngsters in front of me. If you're going to be occupying corner rooms as your own company chairman, like Mr. Chabria could be making it, if any of you are to be the followers of Mr. Chabria, or if you're going to be running your own industry, energy is going to be the biggest challenge. You may have to be, some of you, if you want to be becoming millionaires and billionaires, these are the areas where inventions are needed. And similarly on water. Your country is water stressed already, it will become water starving by the time possibly you guys become 30s and 40s. Because though there is sufficient water falling over here, it is not held back into the earth. So we are going to have water difficulty. Waste I don't have to talk about. I mean how much waste are we producing, how much are we going to be increasing the production of that and managing that also. So there are enough and more challenges in the society for which if you are able to find solutions, you don't have to work for somebody. You can be offering job for others. The modern India is seeking and looking up to people like you to be creating edifices and giving employment rather than seeking employment. And in that lies the future of a country. And when I see the raw energy in each one of you, I'm very confident there is a great future for India. Make that great India and be a part of that. And let us have peace in the future when you guys take charge and mantle of running this country. Thank you once again. All the best.